Hello YouTube, and welcome to the third and final part of my watch collection review. And as I've said in the previous episode, I would like now in this last part to review my Italian and Swiss watches. So let's begin. Let's start from the left. Now this is a Filippo Loretti watch, and this is kind of an interesting modern phenomenon because this watch company started as a crowd-funded, rather like the Borealis one that I talked about. In fact, it was even on GoFundMe some years ago. And what they promised to do is again to deliver very high quality luxury watches at a reasonable price, and they were very, very successful at that, with actually two guys from Eastern Europe, I think from Slovenia, had this idea, and they loved Italian styling, so they decided to make their headquarters in San Marco. In fact, on the back you see that lovely church in San Marco in gold. This is again one of these 10 micron type of ionized gold platings, which can be done quite cost effectively, put it that way. A little gold goes a long way, and because it's ionized, it's quite resilient, shouldn't scratch or wear off too quickly. And I just love the look of this watch, especially with the lovely Milano bracelet also in that gold plate. Just looks really nice if you're wearing a blue jacket for a summer evening. And I've worn it a good many times, and people are always asking me about, well, where'd you get that from? So it's a quartz watch now. I've seen they have also at quite affordable prices. The prices of anything have gone down of these Loretti watches, and you can get an automatic version of that, which I'm really tempted to do because I'm more an automatic guy. It's nice sometimes to have a quartz watch. I just had a new battery put into this one, because you just pick it up and wear it. You don't have to set it or anything like that. So it has a month dial, which is here, and the date and the day. Does not have a second dial, and it's got no loom, so it's really a day dress or evening dress type of watch, not one that you could really, if you want to have loom hands, then it won't help you in the night. But very attractive. Now this cost me, today you can get it for a couple of $100. I think I paid a bit more for that at the time. This was about 2 years ago. The model is called a Venice, which is so moon phase Venice, if you want to look it up on their website. 40mm width, pretty standard dial, 9mm thickness, which is slightly towards the thinner side. The quartz movement is a Miyota 6P00, so there are even differences between quartz movements, which real experts can then tell you more about. I know not so much about them, but Miyota is a perfectly good, just like Japanese quartz movement, just like Seiko, for example. So the quality, I think, of the insides is reasonable for the money you're paying. It's got a sapphire glass, even that's usually not coming necessarily at this kind of $200 price. It's not waterproof, so you don't go swimming in this one. It's really just for dress wear. And I really like this. I find it very, very attractive, and I'm thinking even getting the automatic version of it because I just love those so much. But it's got a lovely finish and design to it. So that's the first Italian watch. Now the second is my Armani, Emporio Armani watch. Now, of course, Armani do a lot of fashion watches, which are not that expensive. But this one is the high-end classic line. This is an automatic. You see it from the lovely movement in there. And that is a STP S15 movement, which is a Swiss movement, but basically by another company, not ETA. ETA almost has the monopoly on Swiss movements for automatic watches, and this is happily one of their rivals, but a very good one. Now, the odd thing is, of course, I say Italian watch, it says Swiss made, because that movement is coming from Switzerland. So there's your problem with watches today. Can you really say it's Italian or Swiss? You know, the Swiss components coming from China. You know, this one, the movement coming from Switzerland. So they're often coming from several different places where they're put together. But certainly the styling is Armani. Again, I'm a big fan of these Milano bracelets, and it's a very nice quality one. Nice finish on the clasp there. You feel it. So, of course, I did pay quite a bit for this. Now, I'm seeing them around prices of maybe 800 today you can get in some places, and I probably paid slightly more than 1,000 for it back then. The movement, in this case being automatic, has a 44-hour power reserve and 28,800 beats per hour. So that's a sort of at the upper middle end, if you like, of an automatic movement. It is okay for 5 atmospheres or 50 meters. You could theoretically go swimming with it. I'm almost with any of my watches, be they diver watch or what. I never like the idea of going swimming with them, unless you've just had it resealed and you're absolutely confident about the age of the seal, because with automatic watches every 10 years or so you're supposed to reservice them, and the seals probably should be looked at every 2 or 3 years. So something to think about there. Again, this is not a loom watch, so this is a nice dress watch, and very comfortable to wear, I must say. Again, more smart. You don't do the gardening with a watch like this, but very lovely. Okay, then I move on to my Maserati. Yes, I couldn't resist it. Well, I was in Siena once, and there was a lovely old watch shop and a lovely old Italian lady that I was talking to there, and I just looked at this and I thought, this is just so nice. Came, like many of these, with different straps. The straps I very much changed to my own taste, and I rather like these stretchy bands. My wife hates them and says they look cheap, but they are very comfortable, quick to put on. You can rest it on the bed table like that. If it's got some loom on, you can see it easy. So I'm rather a fan of them. So I've got one of these gold coloured bracelets. This was not expensive. This is not a plate, but it looks nice, I think. And it's Maserati. Fantastic. Well, this Maserati is quartz, and it's a if I'm correct, this is the Apoca model, and it's a VX9JE1 TMI movement, which is listed in as being part of Seiko Holding. So it's more or less a Seiko quartz that's in there, and this has done very well. Never had any problems with it. I must have had this 4 or 5 years now. Has a stopwatch which you can activate, as I've just done here, and it'll go round the minutes and even hours. So if you're timing something for a very long period, I almost never use them, but on occasion, if you're cooking or something like that, it can be useful. It has a date. There we go. Reset. And of course the joke when I'm wearing this, I wear this sometimes even with smart clothes, the dinner jacket, and somebody says, interesting watch, and I said, well, you know, it just came with the car. There's my little joke, you know, of course. So how much was that? That was about $330, something around that level. And some of these models are made in slightly different forms today than you see here because they always evolve. But really, really pretty nice, I think. Now, those are my 3 Italian watches. Let's talk about some Swiss watches. Now, I've said at the beginning that I have some Swiss watches and I love them, but the problem is you always sort of start at very high levels and pay a lot for the name, which is why I have that big watch collection of other ones, you know. So no surprise really, I don't have that many Swiss watches. But I have a few, because before I used to collect, this is probably getting on for 20 years old, this lovely Oris. As a kid I had an Oris watch, a Swiss watch, and it was very, very good, very reliable. And my wife bought me back then for my 40th birthday this lovely retro looking Oris, and you know I like old fashioned looking things, and of course with this date indicator in red here, it's got a nice oldie antique-y look, and of course with the rim around here, which is nicely stippled or grooved, really looks quite attractive. And this also goes back to the era when men wore slightly smaller watches, so this is a 36mm diameter watch, and today a lot of people frown at them and say that's not a children's watch or something like that, but there are times when it's actually a good idea to have a smaller watch like this. This was one of the early ones in those days that had a glass back, so it's an acrylic dome. Crystal is not crystal, this is acrylic, because it was domed. If I wanted a sapphire one, I could have had it, but it would have been flat, and it then loses its old timer look. So I took the acrylic, the back is mineral glass. Now this one has a ETA 2836-2 movement, which is again 28,800 beats per hour. So they're all comparable in that sense in accuracy and quality. They're upper middle end, they're not the top end, but these are pretty good movements. This is a 30-meter depth. In principle, I had this reserviced fully not long ago by Oris. I went to the factory. It's quite it's not far away, it's only about half an hour drive from where I live, so I actually went there and talked to the watchmaker, and he says, yeah, I'll do it, make it like new, and he says, you know, after that you're pretty well good for 10 years, but again warn me, if you test the seal for swimming, you should check it a bit more frequently than that. So that watch back then cost new in those days about $850. I've seen some second-hand models of these for maybe $400 and some for more depending on their condition. This has 25 jewels, which is typical of that movement, like the for example, the Armani, which was also a automatic movement, had 26 jewels in that movement. And this goes back to the 90s. In fact, 1993 they started this line. And still today, Oris is a good, if you want to get a Swiss watch, and if you don't mind to pay, you know, around 1,000, you know, 500 to 1,000, but probably for an automatic, you know, there's not much change probably out of 1,000. But it's a very good watch. They make some of their own movements also, and sometimes, like in this one, they're using an ETA movement, but they're very good watches, and they have nice designs. So, and they're still going. They have started their high street stores now, so you can actually go into an Oris store and buy a watch, and that's certainly one that I would recommend if one wants to have a Swiss watch. Now, talking of going under, we look at this lovely Dufaux watch. And Dufaux was a company that actually made some of the very first aeroplanes in Switzerland. And out of that family, they switched then later into watches. And about 10 years ago, they stopped making them, which is a great shame. Now, this one I got on a Swissair flight, and this is called the Spirit of Swissair. Trying to get the focus to do something, but Spirit of Swissair 1931, on board a Swiss airplane, and the pilot signed the certificate, and I have upstairs a nice box that this goes into. This is actually a limited edition collector piece. This is number 799 of those ones that were made. And being a pilot's watch, it has very good lume and lots of it, which is great, which is what I wanted at the time. And a bit the old look again with that red second hand. And this is actually a beautiful watch, and about 5-6 years ago this stopped, and I desperately was trying to find a watchmaker that had parts for it because the factory had closed, and I found the watchmaker of the Dufaux factory, and he says, I'll repair it for a very modest price. It was very, very little that he asked to fix it all up, and said, right, now it's like new. And that's sometimes, if you love your watches, what you have to do. You have to go the extra mile. You see the model number, to put them back in action. This is also an ETA 2824. It's very similar to the Oris movement. This one is sealed for 100 meters, so in principle this would be a better one if you would want to have to go swimming to do it. I, as I said, never do. 39-hour power reserve. The Oris was 38 hours. That's about around 40 or close to 40 is pretty standard. And back then in the plane, I remember somewhere, I've got the receipt, it's about $600 that I pay for it. And again, you can find second-hand versions of this around, and very good conditions. Ones like this one would almost cost you the same. So if you keep the condition and they are very well maintained, some watches don't really lose that much value, and depending on the model and the rarity and the interest from collectors, they can even bring more money than it cost when you bought them. So that's the Dufaux. I'm pleased to say there is one in the Basel region in addition to Oris. So Oris is not that far away from me, and that is Zeno. Now, I've always liked the Zeno watches because they often use this black background, and again, as with my Dufaux watch, they have very large letters and lots of lume. So again, it's a good nighttime watch. It's always good, I think, to have a mix of these different watches. So this again is automatic with a glass back. You see here it has a 28242 ETA movement. So again, the beats per hour is 28,800, and it has a 30-hour power reserve. Beautiful looking watch, I think. It's a little chunky. It has a Swiss cross on it, which some of them do to emphasize that they are from Switzerland. And this is a nice watch. Again, they came with a different strap, and I order these stretchy ones because I just like these. And it's a little bit thick. It is a limited edition, so this is watch number 11 out of 250. And for that reason, of course, again, this is not so cheap. $940 is about what I paid for it. It's 25 jewel and good for 100 meters. So again, you could probably chance some diving with a watch like this. Not that I would. Really nice, and I think if you're wearing black, this fits really nicely with that kind of style. Beautiful watch, and they have a lot of interesting models, so it's another model that I can recommend that's still going today, and has some very attractive watches. And then finally is my Charmix watch. This one, for example, is for fine dress dinner jacket. This is for I'm just going to move this light a little bit further away because it's overpowering the camera. That's better. This model is called a Regulateur, and there's a model you can buy today which is very similar. It's got a slightly different name called Réserve du Marche. If you go onto the Charmix website, Mr. Bergen, who set up this factory, I know his son, who is running the company today. Now, in the early days, they made a lot of, a bit like Timex, they made a lot of inexpensive watches, but gradually they bought up quite a beautiful, or a very beautiful luxury line, like this one. This is again gold-plated 10 micron, limited edition, so it's actually model number 76, and of course it's an automatic. This particular one is not actually an ETA. This is a so-called Dubois Desprez 7000 Lux movement. And that's a bit of a secret in watchmaking in Switzerland, that this Dubois Desprez movement is really an excellent one and very renowned amongst watchmakers. You can see it beating away there. It's very quiet, it's very accurate, and basically the hour hand is on the top there, and the minute hand is here, and the second hand is down here. So it's a sort of different design, not all on the same axle, and a date, of course, I have here as well. It's not loom, so it's not a wear in bed or tell the time when it's dark. It's sort of going to a dinner party with very fancy dress. So I've actually kept, in this case, the leather clasp because it's just so lovely, gold plated of course here as well, and when it's clasped like that, it just looks like $1 million. Very high quality leather, and in this case I thought I keep it. You know, the only thing is with leather bands, I find them a little uncomfortable even if it's a hot summer versus the metal ones, so I tend to prefer those, but in this case it fits so beautifully with the watch itself, I've left it on. So that is, if you like, my most expensive watch. In this case, I've seen the new, very close design version of this for about $2,900, you know, which is, in the watch world, you could say that's still not where they can go. You can pay $50,000 for a watch, you know. but it's starting to get on the expensive end. It's the most expensive watch I've got, and I did get it for a little bit better because I knew Mr. Berg and Son personally. But I'm very proud to have this, and I do think they're going, and they're being very successful, and they've upgraded, if you like, a lot of their designs and models. And Charmix is certainly a good watch company to look at. They're not famous like, of course, the Rolexes in Switzerland, but it's one that, for that reason, doesn't cost you. It may cost you 1,000 or 2,000, but it won't cost you 30,000. Marvelous, and very classic with the Roman numerals, which I do find attractive, and this lovely champagne silver dial, which is just marvelous. So that's definitely the dinner jacket watch, not just for casual everyday use. So that's it. Those are my Swiss and Italian watches, and you've seen my whole collection. I hope you enjoyed it, and I have not had, if you like, the expertise of a real watch enthusiast who would talk much longer about the movement and would talk about the boxes that they came in and all kinds of things. But I just thought it might interest you to see them, and perhaps give you some ideas in what direction you'd like to take your watch collection. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon again with a nice tobacco review. Bye-bye.